Hey, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Rock the Boat right here on Revolution Radio. I'm your host for the next 2 hours. Today is let's see, what is today? The 4th of February, or March 2018. And we'll see what we're going to talk about today. There's lots to talk about. You can do these shows 24/7, I believe, and never get to everything that's coming at us, which is plenty. So, for all of you hard researchers and that out there, all those people who've been working diligently for years and decades to uncover the conspiracy against the population of the planet, and then trying to get the truth out to people. Big hats off to everybody who's been doing that for so very long. And people are beginning to wake up, certain people, but it's coming. And the question is, can we fix this before violence is required? And I'm still a firm believer that we can fix this without violence, but we're going to have to pick up the pace here a little bit. Anyways, this is another story from the Canadian Brainwashing Corporation, or the Communist Broadcasting Corporation of Canada, and Australia has one, and the BBC over in England is of the same basic. They're all spawned off of one another, and it's all fake news all the time. So they put out a story here: is Canada's democracy ready for a dire new age of weaponized news? The phrase is not no. It's has long been used in the sense to describe the day-to-day grinding of legislative gears in Ottawa, Washington, and beyond. In today's world, particularly in the military, it has a more menacing aspect due to the role of the Gerasianov doctrine, named for a Russian general who penned it. Now, I'll have to look that guy up because I don't know who that is. Never heard of it? No, I haven't. You saw it in action in both Ukraine and, to a lesser extent, during the 2016 U.S. presidential election. In both cases, cyber attacks were combined with a sophisticated social media disinformation campaign to sow distrust and instability in another nation. Political warfare is what the Liberal government fears most as it considers security arrangements for the 2019 federal election. We saw that fear given fiscal form in the recent federal budget. Political warfare by other means. A significant amount of money, $750 million, is being spent to reinforce the weak spots and the long neglected holes in Canada's cyber defenses. It will, according to experts, deliver tangible security gains to prevent hacking across federal departments and deter cyber criminals. What the money will not do is address the flip side of the political warfare coin: the selective use of hacked data and the pervasive weaponization of so-called fake news. It is one thing for information to be well protected, said John Turnbull, a former Canadian military electronic warfare specialist. The use of Facebook has nothing to do with cyber defense. It is how public information is being disseminated, used, and shaped. That's got nothing to do with cyber defense. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reportedly delivered a warning to Facebook's chief operating officer last fall. The message was simple: either the media company fixes its fake news problem, or it will be subject to tighter federal regulations. Must be working, because the last time I posted something on Facebook, I would have been in jail for 7 days, and got out of jail for about a minute or two, and then I was put back in jail. So apparently what I put out is considered fake news, although what I put out is documentation, their documentation. So what they're saying is that what I'm producing or what I'm posting on Facebook is fake news, and therefore it's got to be locked down, when in fact what I'm posting is their own documents from the government, the UN, and other sources. But these are documents. This is not manipulation of news. This is what they wrote down. But they don't want you to see what they wrote down. So they label, I guess, what I post and so many other on Facebook now, who are being locked down tighter than hell. Because, see, we're past the conspiracy theorist nonsense, okay? i.e. people are waking up. So people get it, but they don't want that information disseminated across social media. So they lock it down, call it Facebook, or call it fake news, and all the rest of it. The only thing that they allow on Facebook is anything that doesn't matter. You know, if you want to bitch about Trudeau and call him an idiot, fine, fill your boots. You know, if you want to tear into another party, fill your boots. But don't ever look behind the curtain, okay? Just look at the window dressing and bitch and complain all you want about it, and you'll never get locked down. But once you start posting actual knowledge, that they don't like, and they will lock you down. So, anyways, the Minister of Democratic Institutions, Karnina Gould, said pretty much the same thing in a recent interview with the Communist Broadcasting Corporation. If the federal government doesn't see something substantive in the next 6 months, then we need to take action, she said. The problem, however, is much broader than social media. A news industry in collapse. The business model that sustained the real news industry for generations has been under assault for over 20 years, but the collapse has been moving at an accelerated pace since the financial meltdown of 2008. Now, they have real, okay, the business model that sustains the real, okay, and the word real is in quotations, because this is a legal industry, okay? And real in legal does not mean real, as in real estate. Okay, now I have the head of the my local real estate board on record, recorded, stating that the real estate industry is a fraud. So, you know, if you look, the lingo of the lawyers, the liars, who write all the legislation or the legalese into it, and our so-called government is permeated from top to bottom with lawyers who are their own private society outside of us, change out the meanings of the words. Now, it's called a jargon language, which is a language it's a language of the thieves, and it is a language used to deceive and gain advantage. So the fact that the word real is in quotes tells you that the real, according to the legal system, is basically something, it's an abstract concept made up in the mind. The abstract concept, as far as your news is concerned, is that it's fake, but we sell it to you as real. Okay? Because our meaning of real is opposite to what your meaning of real is, but you're not supposed to know that. So your news has always been fake. Okay? I mean, political news, military news, education news, religious news. Now, there are real news. Someone was killed in a car accident. Well, that's real news. But they interchange the real and the real. One is real, one is fake, but they're both called real. And they use it, interchange it, to their advantage, because it's jargon and it is there to deceive and take advantage of you. So the fact they put real in brackets news industry, what they're telling you is the fake news industry. So they're coming clean on that one at least, but you're not supposed to know it. Most people that read anything can't comprehend what the hell they're reading, because they never check out the meaning of the words or where the word came from or what the use of it is in any particular instance. Anyways, we'll carry on here. Newsrooms have slashed budgets and staff. Fewer journalists mean fewer fact checkers to keeping tabs both on institutions and the flood of fake news online. Genuine journalism must now compete with content that mimics it and dresses deceit in a cloak of credibility. Well, they're aiming at those who are actually putting out the documents, the real news, and calling them the deceivers. Everything's ass backwards. The world is upside down. That's why I used to use a handle many years ago, back when I first started doing online radio, and which is a long time ago now. But I used to use a handle 180, and people would say to me, "Why are you using 180?" Well, it's very simple. If you want the truth, flip it upside down, okay? Or flip it right side up. So you got to flip it 180. If you take a story like this and flip 180, then you got the truth. If you read this and accept for what you're reading, well, you've been, well, you're not smart enough yet, or you're not awake to understand what the hell you're reading. I find this rather interesting. They're actually putting this out, but this is to try to get people to stay away from anything that isn't MSM. Okay, well, don't read that. That's that fake shit. When, in fact, what they're doing is that they are hugging the fake shit and calling it the real stuff. Let's see here. Where are we? Okay, so adapt to a world in which fact and falsehood are increasingly difficult to tell apart, said an exhaustive report by Canada's Public Policy Forum entitled "The Shattered Mirror News, Democracy and Trust in the Digital Age." An information market polluted this way puts the very notion of credibility at risk. Most of the forum's recommendations went nowhere. The federal budget will pump $50 million into local journalism, but supporters in the industry said it comes nowhere near to what the Canadian media needs to fully adapt to the digital age. The Liberals promised $10 million a year over the next 5 years to support local journalism in underserved areas, and committed government to looking at new models to enable private donations and philanthropic supports for nonprofit journalism and local news. So the support they're looking for is from places like the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, and the thousands and thousands of other tax-exempt foundations that have been set up, who are all pushing the lie. So they will gladly fund the so-called real news because they don't want to lose all the work that they've done over the past century or two. But many studies, particularly in the U.S., have noted that the weakened state of so-called traditional media is a danger to democracy that must be recognized. First and foremost, the leadership of the United States must acknowledge that political warfare strategies are being implemented by regional powers, including Russia, that seek to shift the current balance of geopolitical power in their favor, said an analysis written in June 2015 by the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. The most dangerous consequence of refusing to acknowledge the proliferation of PW, however, will be increasingly proactive foreign political warfare programs designed to erode U.S. national interests throughout the world. Turnbull said Canada is not on the United States level in geopolitical terms, and it's hard to gauge how badly other nations might want to disrupt our democracy. Well, we don't have a democracy. We never had a democracy. You don't want a freaking democracy. There's nothing good about a democracy. If you look up where democracy came from, you'll find the word demotech, and it's basically the enslavement of the common people, which is how you enjoined a democracy so far, folks. Now, you know, the most dangerous consequence, and we talk about Russia here, right, seeking to shift the current balance of geopolitical power. Well, if you go back to the Reece Commission in 1958, I believe it was, and if you don't know about the Reece Commission, please go. It's not difficult, people. Just Google Reece Commission. Okay? And you'll find some videos and whatnot, and you'll find some text. If you don't like to read, you can watch a video. I always recommend you read the text. But Norman Dodd, who was in charge of the Reece Commission, what was told to him by the Ford Foundation, a guy from the Ford Foundation, when they were inquiring, and what the Reece Commission was really set up about was, what the hell are these tax-exempt foundations up to? And a conversation with the Ford Foundation was told that, well, why didn't you just ask us? Okay, what we're charged to do is Sovietize America. Okay, now you got to go back to Russia when Russia was a freestanding country before it was taken down by the internationalists and turned into the Soviet Union. Okay, and that's exactly what they're doing to the West. They're Sovietizing the world, basically, which is a world government, but it's based on bureaucracy. Okay, the faceless bureaucrat. That's what that's what it's based on. So, I mean, everything's written down, and they don't want you to read it, but for God's sakes, go read it. Okay, I mean, this all started pre-Fed. If you go, I mean, if you want to use, I still call that recent history. Okay, a lot of people don't think it's recent history, but it really is. You got to go back to who set up the Fed and how the Fed got implemented by President Wilson. And then you go and you got the First World War. It wasn't a war. It was nothing more than to internationalize and get the state of Israel. Okay, get countries to give up their sovereignty to a world body. But America wouldn't sign on to it because they still had enough knowledge about why they fought the War of Independence. The idea of giving up any amount of sovereignty was not palatable to the American people. Now, Canada signed on to the League of Nations lickety-split because Canada is a communist country. Sorry, folks. Okay? Sorry about that, but that's what it is. And they are working extremely hard to bring about the world government. Your so-called government has never, ever, ever represented the people. And they don't intend to ever represent the people, which means it's time we take back our nation. Or not take it back, we never had it. It's time to take it because possession is 90% of the law, and we built everything here with our labor, and therefore we created everything that is in this country other than the political system, which was phony from the get-go. So it's our country, it's our land, it's our nation. Everything that was ever built here was built by the men and women, not by politicians, not by teachers, not by preachers. It was built by the hardworking men and women of this nation. Therefore, it belongs to us. So the whole idea is to Sovietize. And that's exactly what they've been doing. Now, they're really ticked off at America right now because they're not really playing ball. Although Trump is a player. Okay, you're just being hoodwinked a little different way from the Obama situation. But I mean, you go all the way back to President Wilson. Okay, he's the one that got the Fed involved, which means that you're running on debt notes, not money. And then he ran around when Americans wouldn't sign on to the League of Nations, running around in America telling them if they don't sign it, there's going to be another major war in the not too distant future. How the hell would he know that? Simple, he got told that. Get this signed, stupid, or we're going to do it again. Then they did it again because they needed America on board. So the basis of the world government was put in place through the United Nations, but they need America on board. So have another depression, which leads to another war, which leads to the United Nations and the State of Israel, which America signed. The reason they signed it, because they've been infiltrated enough. The public school system erased the history of why they fought the War of Independence, and the children were hustled into public school systems, which is brainwashing system. Re-education camps is basically what your public school systems are, re-education camps. And you know it's a camp because if you don't go to school, you're going to get in trouble. The truant officers are running around, drag your sorry ass back in. It's no different than being convicted of a minor crime and being thrown in jail, but you get the weekends, you serve it on weekends so that you can still work during the week. You look at the public school system, your children are ordered to show up between the hours of this and the hours of that, and they get to go home at night, but they better be back in the camp in the morning. So you better start looking at public education what it is. It is nothing more than a brainwashing re-education camp. Now Rockefeller, some years back, was concerned about the internet because documents are being released. People are actually getting some knowledge. People are starting to understand what the game is. And that was a threat. The internet was a threat. And Rockefeller actually wanted the thing shut down. But you want world government. You want world electronic voting and such and such and such. You want one bank. You want total control of people's finances. You want complete control of their food, of everything. And so the guys that set up the internet are going, hey, Rocky, we don't mean to, get in your face or nothing, but we can't shut the internet down because this is what your world government's based on. And that's when you got all that truther movement crap, which I spent years tearing apart. So I was getting banged from both sides. I was getting banged from the truther side, and I was getting banged from the other side. Now, finally, the truther movement has basically fallen apart. I mean, most people now get this truther movement nonsense. It wasn't a truth movement; it was a truther movement. That should have been a big heads up for anybody that can think. Okay? They're just passing the poison in a little different fashion. Another, I'm going to carry on with this. Another striking difference, he said, is the apparent sophistication of Canadian voters compared to Americans. Now that's funny. The sophistication of Canadian voters compared to Americans. I don't know how any voter group could be dumber and less informed than Canadians. I can't see that being possible. I don't think we're as vulnerable as the U.S., said Turnbull. Canadians are more cynical about politics. A critically thinking, educated public. Excuse me, I'm having difficulties reading this nonsense. A critically thinking, educated people helps a little bit of critical thinking, and the world be immune to all of this. Canada also has fewer cultural and economic fault lines that can be exploited by a political warfare campaign. Wait a minute. Our borders are wide open. We've got people pouring in from everywhere. Our public is not educated. And a little bit of critically thinking, and you would be immune to all of this. Canada is so fractured, it's ridiculous. 122 different languages, I think, is the number in Toronto, Ontario. Totally fractured. But not according to the Communist Broadcasting Corporation. And all of this, okay, we're just about done here. That doesn't mean, however, that the federal government can stand back. Political parties need to be prepared for and alert to the threat of hacking, and they have to be forthcoming with security services, no matter how uncomfortable that may be. Turnbull said politicians themselves may be Canada's best weapon against enemies striving to turn information into a tool to topple democracy. No one understands information warfare better than politicians, he said. Well, yeah, because all politicians are liars, and the lawyers are liars, the teachers are liars, the preachers are liars. So, yeah, the politicians are right on top of this. You know, it's the same thing, and I've said this before. When I ran on 207, the conservative the handler for the conservative candidate came up to me after the last all candidates meeting when I ran in 207 as an independent, and told me that I had a great future in politics. I mean, this guy was ecstatic. You know, I could be at the top of the political realm if I wanted. He was that impressed. I just looked at him and I told him I was missing something. And he said, I've watched you the whole way through this election, and you, my friend, are missing nothing. You have a great future in politics if you want it. I just looked at the guy and I said, well, you see, I can't shake someone's hand, smile at them while I'm lying to them. And at least he was honest, which was kind of weird. And he said, oh, that. I went, yeah, that. Never missed a beat. Pokes me in the shoulder. And he said, listen, if you ever change your mind, I'm telling you, you got a great future in politics. Okay, and this is the kind of garbage that's being fed out to the people in these news stories. I mean, these people should be taken and hung by the neck until they are no more a danger to the general public. And this last sentence here, an election is nothing more than information war over ideas. Politicians are masters at it. They understand the value of spin or the value of the lie. There's not a political party, or at least a main political party, that is not up to their eyeballs in the Sovietization of Canada. None. From the Soviet Union came the European Union. They want the Asian Union, which they already basically have, and the North American Union. This is a Sovietization. And again, I can't stress enough, there's certain things you need to go and read. Go look up the 1950 Senate hearings with Warburg. Look up the Reece Commission in 1958. Look at the Trilateral Commission that's set up by Rockefeller. And I would also highly recommend people read The Cloak of Green by Elaine Dewar. You can read it you can read it online. That's an eye-opener for all you "we got to save the planet" group, which totally exposes the fraud of the green movement. complete and total fraud. But there's all kinds of information out there that you need to look at because it goes step by step by step by step by step. And if you just follow those steps, then you'll understand. You know, that made-for-TV movie, whatever it is that they used to do back in the day. But that was called America, made in 1987. And nothing could be more in your face than that. You know, Chris Christopherson, who had run as an independent, ended up in a re-education camp. And in order to get out of the camp, besides all the travel restrictions and that were put on these people, was the taking the oath to the flag. And this is after the Sovietization. That's what this movie's about. This is after the Sovietization or the bureaucratic global takeover of America through the Russian system, which is the bureaucratic system. So it's already taken place, and it's showing you what it looks like, how they manipulate. And they did actually a pretty good job of it. About the taking away of your land rights, the feminization of the young boys, the pushing of the arts. It's all there. In your face. But when Chris Christopherson got out of the camp, he had to take an oath to the flag. Well, he's in America, so he's taking an oath to the American flag, right? Well, not exactly. He's taking an oath to the, I guess that would be in the constructive part of the new flag. But when he's facing the guy and the flag, and he's standing there, and the rest of them are standing there, taking their oath to the flag. On the left side, looking at it, is the American flag. On the right side is the Russian flag, Soviet flag, and those two flags are joined together in the middle. The thing binding these two ideologies together, or what used to be two ideologies, now are one and have come together. And the joiner of those two flags, those two ways of life, those two ideologies, is the flag of the United Nations. That is your new government. Now, it's going along swimmingly with Obama and all this flack about Trump, although I'm absolutely convinced he's just another player. Just kind of redirecting things here a little bit. I think they got Trump in there for the simple reason that the American people were starting to get a little upset with this leftist so-called movement. And I think they weren't ready yet for the right to stand up. The easiest way to put the right down is put a so-called right-wing leader in place, which simmers down the people. But make no mistake, Trump owes his soul to somebody, and he's just playing along. Okay? So, they're jumping on Trump all the time because what they're jumping on is the right, because the left got the boot, but the right and the left, their boots on the same international corporate body, walking you to somewhere you don't want to end up at. So that's one thing I find positive is slowly people are starting to realize that there's no difference between the right and the left. Just a boot on the other leg. You know, it was they bitch about, the right bitches about the left, but it was the right that signed you on to Agenda 21, both here in Canada and the United States. Bush signed you on to Agenda 21, United Nations Agenda 21, and it was Brian Mulroney, conservative here in Canada, that signed us on to UN Agenda 21. The first notice that we were given that we are losing our sovereignty that we never had, that was all a fake, nonsensical thing as well. But it was a conservative, Stephen Harper, that said this is a loss of national sovereignty. Well, why would Canada be hosting the G20 meeting if it's a loss of national sovereignty? Why would you host this thing? I mean, it's a simple question. You know, if you know this meeting is about us losing our sovereignty, then why would you host that? And why was it never televised? Why was it never in the print media? I never saw any reference to that statement that was given at a media scrum at the G20. This is a loss of national sovereignty. That's a pretty in-your-face statement. Some people don't like it. Well, I think the number would be higher than some. And he goes on to say, but it's a simple reality. So for all you people out there that think the right is right and the left is wrong, you need to step back, take a little wider view of what's going on here. You know, you only hear what you want to hear. Okay? Right is good, left is bad. They're both bad. The political system was set up specifically to divide and conquer the people. And that's what it's done. The media was set up specifically to misinform people. And that's exactly what it's done. And now it's losing its influence. So now we end up with stories like this. And now your tax dollars, if I added that up, it's about, I think, let's see, 758, 800 million. You're getting close to $1 billion here. Plus the money that's going to come in from the tax-exempt foundations to buoy up the so-called truth media. And you're paying for this. Somebody make you nuts. You're busting your ass. They're spending $1 billion so they can lie at you better. And you're paying for it at interest. How stupid can we be? Apparently pretty damn stupid. So there's a gentleman who I find this rather interesting because all it does is confirm what any decent researcher has known for years. Back in, when was it, 69? I'll have to find this article. I think I still have it open somewhere. Oh, this is something that I want to talk about really quickly. I may have said that on Thursday night show, I'm not sure. Vision, what's it called? Vision Zero? Let's see if I can find this again. Well, there's the Earth Charter. If you don't know about the Earth Charter, go look that up. Okay, you need to know that. And we have the Earth Charter Community. Creative Commons. I'm not going to look into that right tonight. Today, I don't think. But there's, if I can dig this out, I get so many things open. Oh, this is it. Now, in Toronto and everywhere else, it doesn't matter what country you're in, one of the things that they said was that they had to get rid of, or it was something they said was not sustainable back in 1976 at the Conference on Human Settlements, or Habitat 1, UN Habitat 1, held in Vancouver. Opening speech by Pierre, I'm a communist, Jesuit-trained member of the Club of Rome, Trudeau. And this thing was set up by the Rockefellers, Morris Strong, and a bunch of other nutcases, internationalists. What's not sustainable? Private property and private vehicles, private transportation, air conditioning, agriculture, a whole bunch of shit, not sustainable. So that was in 76. Now it's 2018, and we have all this LRT systems being put in all the cities. And we have the smaller towns talking about setting up transit, of which it's not compatible, nor is it fiscally responsible. But this is all coming out of the UN again. Now, in Toronto, we have Vision Zero being pushed in Toronto. And fewer and fewer and fewer people have their own vehicles in the city. Because the whole idea is putting you on a transit system. The whole idea is freedom is a bad thing. Freedom of movement, freedom of thought, freedom of food choices, freedom of education choices are all bad things. Because, well, then you're using your mind and they want you to bow to their overarching plan. So, you know, John Tory, who I met in 2007 during the election, he was the leader of the Ontario Conservatives at the time. He's a lawyer. He's an idiot. And he didn't win the election. And so then he ended up becoming the mayor of Toronto because he's chosen, because he sold his soul. So he's yammering on about Vision Zero. Now, we have visions going on all over the place here. You know, we have your local community has a vision plan for the future. It's all based on Agenda 21 and now 2030. So people say, oh, well, they're going to do this for us, they're going to do that. They're not doing nothing for you. All they're doing is implementing an agenda that was built by some very criminal people who have no respect for you, period. So, you know, where is this Vision Zero coming from? Oh, I don't know. Where would it be coming from? Well, we put in Vision Zero, we end up at the UN again with Sustainable Development Knowledge Platform. I think I'll stick this in the chats because you need to go through this stuff, folks. You know, if you think that something being implemented in your local vicinity is a local initiative, you better think twice, okay? Because it's not. You know, you just got a bunch of brain-dead puppets implementing a global governance into your local communities, which means that every one of your local councils, all the way from the local municipal council up to the federal government, are up to their eyeballs in this. And they're all conspiring against you. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy against your nation and everyone in it. A conspiracy is a criminal act. And we need to hold these people accountable. At the very least, we need to shine the light on them. They've been getting away with this for so long because they're working in the dark. That's where occult comes from, working in secret. And the light hasn't been shone on them. The light has to be shone on them. Okay? You shine light on the darkness disappears. It's that simple. It's that bloody simple. So Global Vision Zero, reaching a new era in road safety. Now, they put this stuff always down as safety. Same thing they do with your legislation, the same thing they do with your local bylaws. It's always about safety. Which actually means control and revenue generation. That's what safety means in their terminology. So they've got all this stuff wrote down here about, you know, how many people get killed in traffic accidents. And if we can just save one life, well, it's worth everything. So if they can save one life from a car accident, then that's reason to take all your private vehicles off the road. Is basically what that boils down to. And put you on transit. Of course, you know, transit, you can look at transit as a bus, you can look at it as a rail car, you can look at it as a whatever. But you know, we have bus accidents, we have rail accidents where many people get killed or maimed or injured, but that doesn't come into the equation. This is about automobiles and safety. And it's really quite disgusting. And we have all the biographies of all these idiots that are in charge of this nonsense. And so they had a conference November 16th. Ashbat. I don't know where Ashbat is, or if that's the name of the thing, 26th, 27th November 2016. And they have all this stuff on here. And they have, what I got here? They have states, sustainable development goals, topics, UN systems, stakeholder engagement, partnerships, resources about, and so on and so forth. So you people can go through this, but this same thing is going on in every single community, from the local level up to the federal level, and being sold to you is safety. You know, they're dropping the speed limits down to the point where you might as well walk. Oops, that's what we want you to do. You know, they just had the Winter Olympics in Phnom, or however you pronounce that, Phnom, in North Korea. Why? I thought everybody hated North Korea. I think it was in North Korea. Yeah, it was in North Korea. Because that's where the city is. Now, if you go there and you look at some videos of Phnom, or however they pronounce that, you will see a sustainable city. You won't see really any private vehicles. People are walking, taking transit, riding their bicycles. The only vehicles you really see on the road there are service vehicles, government vehicles, transit vehicles, and I suppose some dignitaries or something who came into town and rented a car. But for the most part, what you're looking at is a sustainable city. Now, they've always been bad-mouthing North Korea because it's backwards compared to the West. But that's exactly where they're taking you to. You know, North Korea is not like it is for any reason other than it's a test case. So then they bring the Winter Olympics in there, make big hoo-ha about the place. But basically, that's where you're headed to. Where you have a totalitarian government telling you what you're going to live in, how you're going to be transported, what you're going to read, what you're going to know, what you're going to work at, everything. And that's what they want to implement worldwide. So go look it up. Go watch some videos of this place. In particular, the city itself, and look at the transportation modes. And, you know, their electricity is greatly restricted. When they have an Earth Day, they usually bring in North Korea and say, see how dark North Korea is normally, right? All boils down to the United Nations garbage of where they want you to reduce your electricity consumption or your energy consumption by some 75%, your water consumption by some 75% in order to save the planet. Go look at North Korea. And they also said, how are we going to get it to do it? If we just ask people to do it, will they do it? Of course they won't do it. Well, how are we going to force them to do it? Well, simple. Keep putting the price up. Keep putting the price up. And that's exactly what they're doing. You're not using less electricity because you find it convenient to use less electricity. You can't afford to use electricity anymore. And they're just going to keep cranking that up. If that's what you want, then sit back and just ignore what's going on right in front of your face. Now, I don't know anybody that's using more electricity than they need or more energy than they need. I don't know anybody that's using more water than they need. Yet they call us here in Canada energy hogs and water hogs. That should just really tick everybody off. But they're grinding you down under this nonsense of, well, we're just doing it because we have to save the planet. There's nothing wrong with the planet. We've shut down all our coal plants here. There was only 4. But the head of the United Nations environment, the more strong, at the time we were shutting ours down, as the time that he was restructuring our hydro system, they were building 500 coal plants in China without scrubbers. So Mr. Environment is up to his ass in China with his buddies, making tons of cash. Well, they're forcing you to not manufacture anything, not use any water, don't eat any red meat, don't drive a vehicle, don't live in a reasonable space. And that's why I'd like everyone to read The Cloak of Green, because Morris Strong was a major player in all of that through the Rockefellers, and you'll read some very interesting thing. You'll see how your tax dollars are being siphoned out of this country way back in the 70s. Morris Strong, who tied close to Trudeau and Rockefeller, how they were already then just shifting your labor out of the country. And that's when we got hooked into the international banks. Before this move to internationalization, we had basically no debt in this country. And now we're indebted so deep there's no chance of paying it off. And that's part of the plan again, is to bankrupt the nations, because they don't want any nation states. They don't want any sovereign nations. They want a global Soviet-style bureaucracy to control every aspect of your existence. And trust me, that's not what you want, because you're going to end up with something that looks like North Korea. And that ain't a place you want to go to. So we're going to come up to a break here pretty darn quick. So I think what we'll do after the break is I want to talk, I think, about this speech was given. I hear music, so that means I'm off for a smoke with tobacco. So hang in there. This is Rock Boat right here on Revolution Radio, also being fed on UCMI.tv, and we shall.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Who are you?
I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Why am I here?
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
The Matrix is older than you know, as you are undoubtedly gathering the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lassonde.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically autonomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Oscar's freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Hello, this is Maggie Rose McGrath of The Concord Show.
And co-host Marine Corps Map, coming to you on Monday and Tuesdays in Studio A, noon to 2 Eastern.
And Studio B on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern, with educational, instructional, information, and situational updates, often with wonderful guests on the current landscape in the U.S. and overseas.
This is a go.
We are with you, side to side, and back to back.
Please join us on Monday through Wednesdays,
as well as other hosts and guests here on Revolution Radio.
We're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore. We said we're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back. This is Rock the Boat right here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I'm back for the second and final hour. And again, just a note to everybody out there who's listening. These networks are listener supported, and it's can't stress how important it is that these stay on the air. And I also can't stress how important it is that you send in $5, $10, $20, $100, whatever. I mean, these networks are running on shoestrings. And we can't afford to have them go down. Because what these little networks do on very small budgets is allow us a voice to bring some necessary knowledge to the people that is being suppressed by the other media outlets who are funded by billions upon billions upon billions of dollars to keep a lid on the truth. So it's extraordinarily important that that these networks stay up and running. So I want to thank everyone for anything they donate. I also want to ask people who are listening to this show and other shows like this that, get out, spread the word. If you're in a little town, put a little sign in a laundromat or on a note board in your town. All you got to do is listen to Rocket Boat Radio, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern on Revolution Radio. It's that simple. You can put down freedomslips.com. It's that freaking simple. It's not difficult, We got to shine the light, folks, And I want to thank everyone who listens to this show and other shows like this But we gotta get the word out. Okay. I get a lot of notes from people who say, "Geez, I just tripped over your show by accident, or tripped over your blog by accident." There's some really good stuff on here. Just print up a card, or print up, take a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Print 4 pieces on it. The same, cut it out, stick it on a tack board somewhere, and get the word out, because they're coming at us hard now, and we have to shine the light, because with no light, nobody can see, and it's so vitally important that people see, because once people see and once they know, they can't be deceived any longer. This whole mess is built on deception. Okay, so it's important that people get knowledge so that they can see and know, so they no longer are deceived. Then, and only then, can we bring the hammer down on this nonsense that is destroying our nations. And we can do it without violence. Violence is what they're trying to ramp up. And we must do everything in our power not to give them what they want. They're taking us down quietly, and we got to push them back the same way. And it's important we learn the meaning of the word no. It's such a little word, and it's such a powerful word. You have to do this. Well, if your community stands up and says no, that's the end of it. It's just that simple. If one man or woman stands up in the community and says no, and that community is still brainwashed, not just the powers that be are going to come down on that man or woman, the entire community is going to come down on them. So you switch it around so the community gets it. So when the authority says you have to do this or you have to do that, and the community as a whole just looks at them and says, you know what? No. So who has the power? We have the power. We are the power. We got conned into this nonsense that these small groups of people have the authority over us. Wrong thought process completely. Learn to say no. And I don't like the word collectively, but I'll use it in this case. Collectively, we say no. And it's over. It's just that freaking simple. So everybody needs to do their part. And then we will be successful. And we don't have a choice. We must be successful, because if we are not successful, then they get what they want, and your children, grandchildren, those not yet born, have no future. And we must show a respect for our forefathers who came here to get out from underneath the boot of tyranny, to start anew. We allowed it to slip away. We allowed ourselves to be deceived. And now we have a duty to those who are coming after us to make sure that we put things right. Simple as that. It's not difficult. It's not difficult to understand. It's just what it is. And we must get it done. And like I said, no violence is required. Now, if I can find this stuff, let's see. Oh, here it is. Now, I find this rather interesting. There's a guy by the name of Dr. Richard Day, who was hooked up with the Rockefeller Foundation, who was hooked up with Planned Parenthood, who was a teacher in the universities, who gave a talk back in 1969. And no writing materials were allowed. No recording devices were allowed. He was talking to his students or whatever. And he laid it out really well, what the plan was, and took it step by step, and that was in '69. And another gentleman who is really hard to listen to because he really talks slow. So you can look this up. You can listen to it, or you can look it up and get the actual documents. And it was this here is a transcript of Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan's taped reminiscences of off-the-record remarks by Illuminati insider Dr. Richard Day, 20th of March, 1969. The original article may be found at overlordsofchaos.com. Now, this has been put out by several different people. I listened, actually, my good friend Chris sent me a video of an interview with this Lawrence Dunnigan. And from what I get, he listened to it and then run home and made a record of what was said and sat on it for 20 years before he released it. So Dr. Day died in '89, and from what I understand is that's when this Dr. Dunnigan released this information. I think that's when he released it. So anyways, the paper is a transcript of 3 tapes of reminiscence made by Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan of a speech given March 20th by Dr. Richard Day. Dr. Dunnigan claims he attended a medical meeting on March the 20th, '69, where Dr. Richard Day made off-the-record remarks during an address at the Pittsburgh Pediatric Society to a meeting of students and health professionals who were destined to be leaders in medicine and health care. Dr. Day died in '89, but at the time was professor of pediatrics at Mount Sinai Medical School in New York and was previously the medical director of Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Now, Bill Gates' father was also head of Planned Parenthood Federation. And Bill Gates now is running around pumping all this money into vaccines and whatnot, sterilizing people, killing people. And it's all about depopulation. Even though that, the overpopulation myth is the same as the man-caused global warming myth. These are, abstractions of the mind to gain control. And then they pump it out into the public until the public believes it. Anyways, in tape 3, an interview by Randy Engel, Dr. Dunnigan details Dr. Day's credentials, show that Day was an establishment insider privy to the overarching plan of the elite group which rules the Western world and which is working toward the creation of a world dictatorship. This proposed global tyranny is usually called the New World Order and will comprise a secular and a spiritual component, a one world government, and a one world religion. Most analysis of this plan describe it as Lucifer's totalitarian world empire, which is absolutely correct. Now, there's another blog or website that I wish everyone would go and look at, because it really lays it out well. You know, the Club of 1,000, Club of 300. I mean, everybody's in there, and you just keep seeing the same people over and over and over again. But it details in great detail the plan for both a world government and a world religion. And the world religion is Luciferian. And it's called the Green Agenda. I spoke to that gentleman many years ago who put it up. I was quite surprised with the detail in this thing. And it's amazing where this stuff comes from. He was actually a planner or worked in planning, and you know, it was getting ridiculous that, you know, to put up something as simple as a garage all of a sudden was getting a big hoo-ha, you know, or to do a simple this or that. You had all these hoops to jump, all these environmental hoops and that to jump all of a sudden. And it was kind of irritating him because it wasn't making any sense to him. And when I spoke to him, it was that, you know, like, why is this going on? And he started doing some research on it and built this site called the Green Agenda, which is totally phenomenal. You know, if it's not the best site on the internet for that anybody with a half a brain could go through this stuff and figure out something extraordinarily nefarious is going on, and how and why. It's a very, very well put together site. It's easy to read. It's easy to go through. But I highly recommend that. So before he began his talk, Dr. Day asked everyone to turn off all tape recorders and stop taking notes so that he could tell them, the prospective leaders of organized medicine, what was going to happen in the future. Dr. Dunnigan sensed that Dr. Day's message would be important, ignored the request, and noted the points made by him on a set of table napkins. He later wrote these notes, which formed the basis of the 3 tapes. Now, what's really good about this? Now, the problem with people today is they don't have they can't stay focused very long. Everything that comes at them comes in little sound bites and whatnot. The tape that Chris sent me was 4 hours and something long. And, you know, I just wanted to go down to Kingston and punch him in the head. Just kidding. He sends me really long stuff. Always. And some of it, you know, I've known for a long, long time. But this particular guy, Dr. Day, I'd never heard of before, so I want to thank Chris for sending that. And I went through it, and it's actually quite brilliant, because it's nothing I don't know, but it's a wonderful thing for somebody that doesn't know, okay? Because it details history. And what I've always been telling people for as long as I can remember is you can't know anything about what's going on today unless you back up and understand the history of what got us here today. There's no connection. So this particular tape, and you can download the PDFs of the talk so you can read it at your leisure, which I would think in one sense might be easier for some people. Listening to the tape might be easier for other people. But the guy really talks slow. I mean, it's I did see a comment like if you got something to say it, please. But I understand the guy where he's coming from. It's just his way of getting through it. So the notes taken by Dunnigan reveal that not just what is planned for the entire population of the planet, but how this evil cabal intend to carry out their plan. Anyone who has studied the plan will recognize that Dr. Day's remarks are essentially a reiteration of the secret agenda being followed by the global elite. The agenda includes the elimination of swaths of humanity by promoting ill health and spurious medical treatments, while at the same time suppressing effective treatments for disease and deliberately introducing man-made pathogens such as the AIDS virus into the human gene pool. Throughout his talk, Dr. Day justified his observations by using a philosophy founded upon a spurious theory made famous by the English natural scientist Charles Darwin, namely evolution by natural selection. This, described by an ardent supporter of the English philosopher and socialist Herbert Spencer as a survival of the fittest. Spencer also applied Darwin's hypotheses to human societies. Thus, while Darwin restricted his formula of organic evolution, wherein new species arise and are perpetrated by natural selection, to the animal kingdom, others followed Spencer and extended natural selection to human society as well. Spencer's theory, often called the social Darwinism, whereby human society mimics the jungle and only those best able to cope with the many testing circumstances survive, and their characteristics into future generations, is the scientific basis of eugenics. The dangerous science envisions an ever-increasing separation between an elite race and the degenerate human stock, namely the masses of humanity. The German philosopher Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, best remembered for his concept of the Superman and for his rejection of the Christian values, was one of the philosophical giants of the movement. Now, most of these philosophers, I never really studied philosophy until last couple of years or whatever, especially when the guy out of Toronto, what the hell's his name? He's on the internet all over the place. What the hell's his name? Anyways, he came out, about the transgendered and the gender issues and all that kind of stuff. His name will pop in here shortly. But he's always yapping off about philosophy, and he's riding between, and this is what always irritates me, Jordan Peterson. A lot of people are all sucked into Jordan Peterson now. Well, Jordan Peterson, I'd like to talk to that boy. I should call him up, I suppose, when I get some time. I'd really like to get him on the show because he's walking two lines, okay? He's walking the line of philosophy and the line of creation. Well, you can't do that, okay? But he's doing it. And I've seen other guys doing this, and it confuses people, and people just listen and hear what they want to hear. But you can't run those two rails. You can't do it. And that's what he does. Now, Nietzsche here, I think his father was, if I'm not mistaken, a Lutheran minister, maybe. He was some kind of a pastor. And he got brain cancer or something and died early. And that caused Nietzsche to question God and creation, all this kind of stuff. Why would God kill my father when my father was promoting his word? Well, was he? I don't know. But anyways, Nietzsche ended up at a Catholic school or a university of some sort. But the whole process or the idea of this particular institution was the killing of God. Okay? That was the process. And I was reading in an old book back mid-19th century when Darwinism or social Darwinism started to take hold. that they killed God. And Nietzsche was credited with killing God, okay, which opens a door for man becoming God, okay? And Catholicism is Luciferianism, and so you got to kill God. So the idea behind this was to become worshippers of the creation, not the creator. And in that book, it's very in your face. We killed God, and the reason we killed God was, as long as God existed, the ecology movement couldn't move. Okay, you can't worship two things, right? You can't do it. So they wanted to control the earth and everyone on it, and therefore you need to be taught to worship the creation, not the creator. The scientists in this book, in this same area of the book, says that they replaced the priests with the scientists, which makes sense. Because like the priests, you couldn't question the priests. The idea of the Catholic priest was that you don't read the word. You don't read the book. We'll tell you what you need to know. It wasn't until the Reformation came along that the common people got access to the book. Up until then, it was the priests, and it worked all the way through right up till today in the Catholic Church. You don't need to know nothing. We'll tell you what you need to know about creation. So the scientists, and the whole idea of killing God, is to bring the ecology forward. And so we replace the priests with the scientists, and you can't question the scientists, just like you couldn't question the priests. And you didn't know nothing about the book because it was held by the priests in the church, and you don't know anything about science because that's also held. So this idea that global warming is a problem and it's man-created is a crock of nonsense, but you're not allowed to question the scientists. It's heresy, basically, to question the scientists. That's why I always spit on scientists. That's why I always spit on priests. Okay? They're deceivers, both of them. So, that's where this really got cooking. They found an opportunity through Darwin, who wasn't talking about men and women. He was talking about the animal kingdom, but they said, here's an opportunity to do some deceiving. That's what these people do. They look for opportunities to deceive the masses. And so when I have someone jumping between creator and creation, I see Jordan Peterson as either a very confused man or he's a player. And after listening to him for some period of time, I believe he's a player. In fact, I'm almost certain he's a player. I don't believe he's stupid enough I don't think he's unintelligent enough to be jumping between these two spheres unknowingly. But he's got a big following because certain people are hearing what they want to hear, and they don't look into anything. They just lazy, and they hear what they want to hear, and they run with it. Anyways, the aim in doing, this is back to this story again about Dr. Day, the aim in doing so is not only to preserve what advances humanity has made in this evolutionary process, but to help it along. The pernicious philosophy is utterly inimical to the true God-given purpose of creation, the natural moral order founded by the will of God, and yet it's central to the dark philosophy of those who wish to bring about a new world order. This also explains why eugenics, incorporating global population reduction and genocide, is a major component in this plan. It also, the reason that the proponents of the new world order hate Christianity and seek its destruction. Now, I've been talking that forever. I don't really care what you believe in. I could personally care less. But when I sat down and took a fairly wide view of this many years ago and thought, okay, what's standing in the way of this global government, global religion game? What's standing in the way? Well, two things are standing in the way. The American Constitution and the Christian faith. Now, I both of those are a little iffy because the Christian faith, I don't even like the word Christian, because that's what the Catholics were referring themselves to, and that's not true. But after the Reformation, I would rather look at, they were the protesters. They were protesting against the evil that was found in Rome, the Vatican, the Pope, and Catholicism. So I really don't like the word Christianity. And I really, the American Constitution. Well, okay, the American Constitution, but who put that together, really? We had a bunch of Masons and a bunch of this, a bunch of that. We had, I think Franklin was running back and forth to Europe all the time. So, while stuff was in there, is it what people actually believe it is? Now, there's stuff written in there that is very useful to the people. But then it got changed out of the United States Constitution, which is a different animal altogether. The Christian faith is basically the same thing. People see it one way when it's really the other way. But those are the two things that were standing in the way. The Christian faith and the American Constitution. And I said years and years ago, in order for them to get what they want, these two things have to disappear. So now we have this, we had, I think it was George Bush said, it'd be a lot easier if this was a dictatorship and I was a dictator. I also believe it was Bush that said something along the lines of, the Constitution is a damn piece of paper. Well, yeah, that damn piece of paper is standing in the way. Now, as far as Christian faith is concerned, it's been removed, and they started doing this way long time ago when they started to bring in evolution. And they were teaching both in school. How stupid are people really? When you have these so-called Christians that believe in evolution and creation, excuse me? That ain't possible. That's like using the terms legal and law. They take two terms that mean nothing. They have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with each other. And they keep interchanging them all the time so that people think they mean the same thing. They do not. Okay? It's deception. And you've allowed yourself to be deceived. Now, whether you believe there's a creator or not, that's not my problem. Okay? But there's certain bits that are very important, i.e., take heed no man deceive you. That's a pretty simple statement. But yet these people allow themselves to be deceived. And they continue to go to the churches where they're being deceived. But they've ripped the Christian faith, or the idea, put it this way, the idea of a creator. out of our societies. Okay, the Lord's Prayer has been taken from all the schools, all the legislatures, all the municipal halls, created a void. Then your borders were opened up, and your countries are being flooded by everything that isn't of the Christian faith. And now we have mosques being built everywhere, and Islam being taught in the schools. You're being told you can't say anything negative about a Muslim, just like you can't say anything negative against a Jew, but when you look at the Jews and you look at the Muslims, they're the same damn people. And who controls your media, and who controls your government, and who controls the legal system, and so forth and so on? The Jews. Who controls your finances? The Jews. So who's telling you can't say anything negative about a Muslim? The mainstream media. Well, who runs the mainstream media? The Jews. Oops. Well, I thought the Muslims hated the Jews. If the mainstream media is controlled by the Jews, then why wouldn't the Jews be putting up all kinds of messages saying, keep these suckers out of these countries? Deception is an amazing tool that seems to work very well for these people, because the average man or woman is too busy trying to look after their family to have time to look into anything. Anyways, amongst the secret plans which Dr. Day outlined was the revolution in morals that had shaken Western society to its foundation. This would usher in a new world religion, the one world religion of the NWO. This would actually be brought about by the churches themselves, especially the Roman Catholic Church. Moreover, he discussed bringing the nation to the brink of nuclear war and the cynical use of terrorism to bring about a one world government. Well, this is all true. It's all happened. I mean, when I was young, we were taught to dive under our desks and put our hands behind our head in case of a nuclear explosion nearby. And of course, that was just another deception, the fear game. So we moved from the nuclear fear game to the global warming fear game, and same game, same players. Among topics discussed, Dr. Day, were population control, permission to have babies, redirecting the purpose of sex, sex without reproduction, reproduction without sex, contraceptive universally available to all, sex education, and carnalizing of youth as a tool of world government. Now, we're all seeing this today. We saw it in the 60s, and it's always moving to a new era. It's always the splitting of the generations of the family so that they don't connect to one another anymore. Encouraging homosexuality, including anything goes homosexuality, technology use for reproduction without sex, families to diminish in importance, and euthanasia, and the demise pill, limiting access to affordable medical care and thus making it easier to eliminate the elderly. Medicine to be tightly controlled, the elimination of private doctors, new difficult to diagnose untreatable diseases, and suppression of cancer cures to control and reduce the population included heart attacks as a form of assassination, education as a tool for accelerating the onset of puberty and evolution, the blending of all religions. The old religions will have to go, changing the Bible through the revisions of key words, restructuring education as a tool of indoctrination, spending more time in schools, but pupils wouldn't learn anything. Controlling who has access to information, schools as a hub of the community. Some books would just disappear from the libraries, changing laws to promote moral and social chaos, and encouragement of drug use to create a jungle atmosphere in cities and towns, promotes alcohol abuse, restrictions on travel, the need for more jails, using hospitals as jail, more psychology, physical security, crime used to manage society, curtailment of U.S. industrial preeminence, shifting populations and economics to tear out social roots, sports to be used as a tool of social engineering and change, sex and violence to be inoculated through entertainment, travel restrictions, and implanted ID cards, food control, weather control, using mass psychology to control, know how people respond and behave, the falsification of scientific research, the use of terrorism and the creation of terrorist threats, the use of surveillance devices, implants, and televisions to monitor public, home ownership to be a thing of the past, and ultimately the arrival of the totalitarian system of global control. Now, this is the stuff that Dr. Day was talking about in 1969. Okay, now I did run through that really quick, but everything that I just read there, you go, Okay, that's why it's so important to understand the past, because you can't understand the past. You can't understand now and the future. And you never understand the future, but you can't know now what's going on if you don't understand where this stuff came from or what the plans were. This is not things that happen by chance, okay? This is not normal evolution. This is a forced evolution. It's a fake evolution to get people to where they want them, okay? And that's under the Buddha tyranny, if you're lucky to survive it. They made all kinds of movies in the past depicting this very thing. And so they always tell you, that's the kicker of this, they always tell you what the hell they're up to. They tell you, but you don't get it. You just went to see a movie. Now, we don't watch movies anymore, don't go to the movies anymore, because, well, once you understand what the movie is, it's really not worth watching. You know, we're sitting in a theater and people are watching what they think is entertainment, and we know it's not entertainment, and they laugh where they're supposed to laugh, and they sneer where they're supposed to sneer, and so on and so forth. And then you try to explain the movie to these people after the movie, and they go, what are you talking about? That's all a conspiracy shit. This was just entertainment for us. You know, that's how capable these deceivers are, and this is how stupid the deceived are. You know, they think that they're being entertained. You're being told exactly what they're up to. They lay their plans out in front of your face, and as Warburg said, we will have a world government by consent or by conquest. And here in the West, they've got us consenting. And we must stop that. You know, we have this big, huge rise in, you know, children that are having mental problems, and we got to give them all free drugs until they're 25, you know. Everything that is going on today was told to us in 69, but you knew about that before that. I mean, I was in 69, I was 14 years old, and I was already starting to go, what the hell's going on here? By the time I was, I don't know, 17, I guess, I left the church, I left the school, because I didn't want to be influenced by either one of these outfits, because something in my gut told me both of these were extremely wrong, that something had shifted, and you weren't getting my soul and you weren't getting my mind. So I had to vacate both of them. And, you know, I started telling people back in the 70s, something's going on here. You know, I know a lot more today than I did then, but there was something wrong. And this is what it is. Now, in 69, he said this stuff, and in, you know, 69, And then in 1970, we had the first Earth Day. In 1972, we had the first conference on the human environment. And the kicker about the word human is it doesn't exist in the King James Bible. There's no mention of a human. And there's also no mention of legal. There's only mention of man/woman and law. So what exactly is a human? Let's see. God created everything and gave man dominion. Okie doke, that's pretty easy to understand. Where do these humans come into play? What the hell's a human anyways? Well, according to the United Nations, a human is something that evolved from a great ape, an animal. And what did God give man dominion over? The trees, the rocks, the fishes, the animals. What this boils down to is a bunch of Luciferian, Satanistic, devil-worshipping pricks who want to play God. Well, they couldn't play God because, well, you can't have dominion over something you didn't create. The only way they can get dominion over you is to create something different, to transform you, to evolutionize you from a man into an animal. They can't control you through law because they didn't create law. So they created legal. And this is what has enslaved us, this idea that we accept this idea that we're animals when we're not. And this idea that this legal system is a system of law, which it's not. And those two things you got to get through your thick skulls. If you want to run around saying you're a human, which is an animal by definition, and it doesn't take a genius to understand. I don't know how we were taught this garbage in the school. How that man evolved from a great ape. Well, there was this female comedian one time, and I don't remember what her name was, but I got a bit of a chuckle out of it because, you know, she said, they say we evolved from monkeys. Well, in fact, we evolved from a great ape. And if we evolved from an ape or a monkey, then the next question would have to be, why are there monkeys or apes? Because if they evolved into us, then why are they still here? Well, don't ask the scientists that because, well, they're deceivers. So it's time we step up to the plate as men and women and start acting like men and women and start acting like we're the ones that have dominion, not as animals. Evolution is a crock of nonsense. Always has been. But it's a deception. It's a language of the thieves. We use deception to gain advantage. And we've allowed them to gain advantage over us. And therefore, as animals, they have the right to do whatever they want with us because they have dominion over us. An absolutely false dominion, but then we're not men and women, we're animals. And apparently God gave man dominion. But you're not acting as a man or a woman. You've accepted your spot in life as an animal. And you gave someone else dominion over you. As something Carlin would have said, not too effing bright, folks. Not too bright at all. So everything here is the tear down of the moral fortitude of our people, our nations, which are, I don't even like the word people. You know, if you look up the word people, it ain't got a lot of good stuff about it either, okay? You know, we need to refer to us ourselves, and it's difficult because it's not natural. It used to be natural, but it's not so natural anymore. You know, they shift the meanings of the words in that for their benefit. Anyways, we've only got a few minutes left here. Is there a power, a force, or a group of men organizing and redirecting change? Well, of course there are. There's been much written and much said by some people who have looked at all the changes that have occurred in American society in the past 20 years or so, and have looked retrospectively to earlier history of the United States and indeed of the world, and come to the conclusion that there is a conspiracy of sorts which influences, indeed controls major historical events, not only in the United States but around the world. The conspiratorial interpretation of history is based on people making observations from the outside, gathering evidence and coming to conclusion that from the outside they see as a conspiracy. Their evidence and conclusions are based on evidence gathered in retrospect, period. Which goes back to, you can't know what's going on today unless you understand history. And most of the history we were taught was completely false. So there's a lot of study that needs to be done. But it's not so much even study, it's more like getting to a common denominator. Once you understand the common denominator, then the rest of it really doesn't matter that much. So I would ask people to go and check out. You can look up Dr. Day, Dr. Richard Day, or Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan, and watch the video. Or not hard to find the PDFs in that of his taped recordings, and either read them or listen to them. But you will find that everything that has come at you since you were born, basically, you will see that it wasn't a natural occurrence. Okay, this was all planned out, stage by stage by stage by stage, to get you where they want you. Now, according to what Dunnigan was saying, was that Dr. Day in his talk, and I don't know if it's in here, I haven't gone through this thing yet, I haven't had time, but what the hell was I going to say? Dr. Day was saying what? Oh, that's what he was saying. When he gave this talk to these pediatricians and doctors and that, what he was saying, he says, I guess it's okay to say this now because there's no stopping it now. Everything is in place now. You can't stop us now. It's all in place. Well, I would say, let's prove Dr. Day wrong. Okay? Let's prove Dr. Day wrong. They may have all their plans in place, and yes, they've killed hundreds of millions of people through the wars and through the bad medical stuff, through the food, through the poisons that they've inflicted upon the people. Yes, they've killed off hundreds of millions of people. Now, you got to just ask yourself, if we give them what they want, is total control over everybody and every resource on the planet, and they've already killed hundreds of millions of people trying to get to where they want to get to, what is your future going to look like? Because their plan is to preferably knock off at least 70% of the population. This is a conspiracy, a massive conspiracy to kill billions of people. So while Dr. Day says it's all in place, well, no, it may be all in place, but it can't, this idea that you can't stop it is ridiculous. Of course we can stop it.
Question everything. Intelligent radio for intelligent people. UCY.tv.